Boris Johnson doubles forces near freezing Ukraine border to crank up pressure on Putin. Boris Johnson is ordering 1,000 British troops to prepare for a massive military showdown with Vladimir Putin in icy cold Eastern Europe. The PM vowed to protect Ukraine from Russian aggression by land, sea and air by bolstering support for NATO. Britain is responding to Russia's threat to invade Ukraine by sending troops to Eastern Europe. Credit, AP. He will double the number of UK armed forces in Eastern Europe within days, supported by RAF fighter jets, rocket launchers and warships. Mr. Johnson announced the deployment as 130,000 Russian troops amassed on the border with Ukraine. America has warned they pose the biggest threat to peace since World War II amid fears Russia could invade within days. They are armed with a chilling array of weapons including high-tech electromagnetic pulse cannons that can paralyze opposing forces. The devices fire high-energy microwaves capable of frying the electronics of an enemy plane, immobilizing tanks and communications and command systems. They work by heating up the target to critical temperatures within a fraction of a second. A defense source said, "This is the stuff that in the past was just science fiction. It's a highly advanced cross between cyber and conventional warfare, and is capable of taking out enemy devices from 6 miles away within seconds." Britain is sending reinforcements to bolster Ukraine's defenses. Mr. Johnson hopes the Western buildup, the biggest in the region since the Cold War, will send a clear message to the Kremlin to back off. Writing in today's Sun on Sunday, the PM says, "The land, sea and air from Cyprus in the south to Estonia in the north will be guarded by the British Armed Forces. We have done all this not as a show of hostility towards Russia but as a demonstration that we will always stand up for freedom and democracy in the face of aggression." The PM warned President Putin that a package of sanctions and other measures would be enacted the moment the first Russian tow cap crosses further into Ukraine. He asked military and security chiefs to step up defensive efforts in Europe after an intelligence briefing on the Russian threat. And he announced he will deploy 1,000 troops across Europe this week to protect NATO's eastern and northern flanks in the region. They are in addition to the 900 already based in Estonia, 100 in Ukraine and 150 in Poland. The PM is also sending an RAF squadron of fighter jets to patrol Romanian and Bulgarian airspace. They will be backed up by 2 Royal Navy warships, a Type 45 destroyer and an offshore patrol vessel, which are already heading for the Black Sea. Other British hardware drafted into the Baltic region will include a fleet of Apache attack helicopters and a battery of deep-fire rocket launchers in Estonia. The PM said, "This package will send a clear message to the Kremlin: we will not tolerate their destabilizing activity, and we will always stand with our NATO allies in the face of Russian hostility. If President Putin chooses a path of bloodshed and destruction, it will be a tragedy for Europe. Ukraine must be free to choose its own future. I have ordered our armed forces to prepare to deploy across Europe next week, ensuring we are able to support our NATO allies on land, at sea and in the air." The PM has previously stressed that talking Russia down from the brink of war remains his top priority. He has vowed to step up diplomatic efforts to work in tandem with a massive military show of strength. This week he will spell out the dire consequences of invading Ukraine in a phone call with President Putin. And he will make a trip to the region to relay that message in person in the coming days, while Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and Defense Secretary Ben Wallace will be sent to Moscow for talks with their counterparts. Mr. Wallace is expected to travel to meet Balkan partners in Hungary, Slovenia, Croatia and the Czech Republic this week. A No. 10 source said the Prime Minister had consistently told partners that without a successful combination of deterrence and diplomacy, thousands of lives will be lost on both sides of the border. The PM discussed diplomatic tactics and sanctions options with Ms. Truss last week. She is expected to announce a toughening of her sanctions regime to MPs tomorrow. It is believed it will target Russia's strategic and financial interests. Britain will also turn up the heat on Moscow at the UN Security Council in New York tomorrow. Pressure will be piled on Russia to thrash out its concerns among diplomats rather than through military action. The UK will use the meeting to expose Russia's flawed narrative by presenting all the facts. Shadow Defense Secretary John Healey said, "The UK must do everything to face down Russian aggression through diplomacy and deterrence." Labour has called for widespread and hard-hitting sanctions to cut Russian access to the international financial system. The UK must play our part in maintaining the international unity needed in support of Ukraine, by creating the toughest package of possible sanctions. Dad's Army v Vlad's Army by Nick Parker, Chief Foreign Correspondent at Kyiv. Border crossing mums, dads and granddads in Ukraine pledged to fight Vladimir Putin's 127,000-strong army to the death yesterday, as they trained for war in tracksuits with wooden replica rifles. But commanders vowed they would be fully armed and ready within weeks. But I'm here because I need to learn how to protect myself and my family if the Russians invade. The dad of two said, "We have been at war with Russia's allies in the East for 7 years and are being well trained by people with battle experience." The dad of two said, "We know that it will be a tough, hard fight and that we may die in battle. Once trained, they will link up with regular army units or join an urban guerrilla war to tie up Russian forces in bloody house-to-house battles." First Lieutenant Andriy Poltorak, an experienced Ukraine Army reservist, is training the volunteers. He said, "The recruits are at a basic level of training but within 2 months they could be ready to fight."